Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Investors heave a sigh of relief after President Trump pushes back his 50% tariff deadline on the European Union by over a month to the 9th of July. European markets perk up in trade. President Trump says Russia's Putin has gone absolutely crazy and hints at possible new sanctions. This after Ukraine's Zelensky questioned America's silence on Russian air raids targeting Ukrainian cities. Trump also slammed Zelensky, says he's doing his country no favor by talking the way he does. Relief for JSW Steel over its acquisition of bankrupt Bhushan Steel. The Supreme Court orders a status quo on liquidation proceedings. JSW and lenders confirmed that review petitions will be filed. JSW management upbeat on getting a refund even if Bhushan Steel goes into liquidation. Relief for SpiceJet in its arbitral dispute with former promoter Kalanithy Maran. The Delhi High Court rejects Maran's claim of 1,300 crore rupees in damages, calls it a case of deliberate and willful concealment of facts. Maran has the option of challenging the order in the apex court. Supreme Court questions Maharashtra government's decision to disqualify L&T from the tender process of two projects worth 14,000 crore rupees. Says it's difficult to believe that the company that built the Central Vista in New Delhi did not qualify. Seeks the state government's response by Thursday. Online investment platform Groww files confidential IPO papers with SEBI. Sources say the IPO size is likely to be around $700 million to $1 billion. Indigo promoter Rakesh Gangwal is set to sell more than 3% stake in the airline through block deals tomorrow. Sources say the floor price is at a discount of over 4% and Gangwal is hoping to raise more than 6,800 crore rupees. The new invoice management system under GST irks India Inc. Sources say industry has told government that the new system is causing additional compliance burden. The Kerala government issues a warning to coastal areas this after containers from a capsized ship carrying oil and hazardous chemicals wash ashore. The state government tells the public to stay away from the beached containers. Heavy rains lash Mumbai, disrupting road and rail traffic as the monsoon arrives early. An underground metro station which recently opened in Worli has been flooded. Quick commerce battle escalates. Zepto CEO Palicha alleges a smear campaign by an unnamed CFO for rival company, claims social media campaign to spread negativity about Zepto. Well, let's go straight to the day's market action. The markets ended with minor gains in a range-bound session. The Nifty ending above 25,000. Auto and IT stocks were the top gainers today. The mid-cap index did outperform. But let's talk about the big global story. US President Donald Trump has extended his 50% tariff deadline for the European Union from the 1st of June to the 9th of July. The de-escalation comes after the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen asked for more time to reach an agreement. Now, the EU chief has said that the bloc is ready to advance talks swiftly and decisively. European markets up in trade today. Wall Street, of course, is shut on account of Memorial Day. Meanwhile, the EU has begun to court Vietnam to strengthen trade ties with the export-dependent nation. This comes soon after Chinese President Xi Jinping's bid to attract business from the nation that's grappling with threats of crippling US tariffs. French President Emmanuel Macron's first visit saw France and Vietnam sign a deal for 20 Airbus aircraft, along with other deals. And here's the latest in the India-US trade negotiations. Sources say US officials are likely to visit India in the coming weeks as talks gather pace. Both nations are aiming to sign an interim deal before the 9th of July. Remember, CNBC TV18 reported last week that an in-principle agreement for the first phase of an India-US trade deal is likely in the next week to 10 days. Abhimanyu standing by with more details. Abhi.
It's a fresh set of developments in the India-US trade talks. Government sources have indicated that American officials are slated to come to India as part of continuing negotiations between both the sides. Now, both the sides are looking at a bilateral trade agreement which is slated to come out in 3 phases. The first phase is the interim deal which both the sides are looking to seal before the 9th of July to avert the applicability of reciprocal tariffs. It's going to be followed by the first tranche of the BTA which is slated to come into effect by September or October this year, which is going to include goods as well as digital services. However, a full-fledged BTA, a bilateral trade agreement, may take time as the Trump administration does not currently have the authority to bring tariffs lower than the MFN rate, as the same will require approval from the US Congress. Meanwhile, India is seeking a basic customs duty cut in several labor-intensive sectors from where exports usually take place from India, which includes textiles and leather. Also, India is seeking a minimum import price in several sensitive sectors to protect the interests of local manufacturers.
All right, Abhimanyu, many thanks for joining us. That's the latest there as far as the India-US trade talks are concerned. Now, President Trump has called Russian President Putin, and I quote, crazy for launching one of the biggest airstrikes on Ukraine since the start of the war. Trump has also warned Moscow that any attempt to take over Ukraine will lead to the downfall of Russia, warning further sanctions.
Not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
Well, that's President Trump on Vladimir Putin saying he doesn't like what Russia is doing. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have bombed a school in Gaza, killing 36 people, including children. Forces have also arrested at least 11 Palestinians during raids carried out by Israeli forces across the occupied West Bank since dawn. In a post on X, the Israeli military said it intercepted a rocket launch from Gaza before it crossed into Israeli territory. Back home, in what comes as relief for JSW Steel, the Supreme Court has ordered a status quo on the liquidation proceedings of Bhushan Power and Steel. The apex court has allowed JSW Steel and its committee of creditors to file review petitions in the case, saying that the time period for the review isn't over yet. Ashmit is standing by now with the details. Ashmit, take us through the apex court's order. Justice Bela Trivedi, who had passed the order in this case, no longer at the Supreme Court, so a review petition now likely to be filed?
Well, what we understand is that clearly there's a big relief that's come as far as JSW Steel is concerned. What we're given to understand is that the Supreme Court, in very clear terms, has directed for a sense of status quo, no liquidation as far as Bhushan Power and Steel is concerned. That's the core concern that had been raised by the COC, that had been raised by JSW Steel. Now, bear in mind that former promoter Sanjay Singhal had moved the NCLT and had sought for an expeditious liquidation of Bhushan Power and Steel. Now, what JSW Steel, as well as the COC, when appearing before the Supreme Court, told the highest court is that, look, there is still some time left as far as filing of the review is concerned, that if liquidation takes place, that will leave JSW, that will leave the COC high and dry, that the COC themselves are facing questions of how this return, if the Supreme Court order is to be complied with, how the return of funds is to work, how the return of securities from JSW back to the lenders will work, what legal options there are before the lenders, before the JSW. And these were questions basis which the Supreme Court said that in the interest of justice, it's best advised that at this point status quo is maintained. There is no further movement, there is no liquidation that takes place, and that is the best way to ensure that if and when the review is filed, there will not be any further liquidation. Having said that, speaking of a review, the Supreme Court, as a part of its order, does record indicating that both JSW Steel as well as the COC are contemplating relief measures like filing of a review petition. Just a small caveat there. As per the Supreme Court rules, there's a 30-day window for filing of review petitions. Given that this judgment came on 2nd of May, 2nd of June naturally would translate into a deadline, a 30-day deadline. So that's the window that JSW Steel and the lenders are looking at in terms of filing of a review petition. But for now, status quo, no liquidation to happen as far as Bhushan Power and Steel is concerned.
Ashwit, many thanks. And JSW Steel's joint MD and CEO Jayant Acharya said the company has strong grounds to avail all legal remedies with respect to Bhushan Power. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, he also said that JSW Steel expects to receive refunds from Bhushan Power if it is headed for liquidation.
I think those are under various stages of discussions with our advisors, and we'll be taking appropriate steps at the right time. I may not be able to give you exactly what the status is in the court as of today. Yes, so two things. On the downside, as per the Supreme Court judgment as well, we are protected from the fact that the refund would come back to us, number one. Number two, the capacity expansions in BPSL have been done from the internal accruals which we generated at BPSL as per the resolution plan.
Let me go back to Ashmit. Ashmit, let's talk about the other matter that you were tracking in court to do with SpiceJet. The SpiceJet stock was up in trade today. This after the Delhi High Court dismissed Kalanidhi Maran's plea seeking damages of more than 1,300 crore rupees from the airline. Ashmit, take us through what the court said and what this now means for Kalanidhi Maran.
Well, big reprieve coming in for SpiceJet, the airline. The Delhi High Court on Friday, we understand, has rejected an application by Kalanidhi Maran seeking damages of 1,300 crore rupees. Now, bear in mind, this goes back nearly a decade and a half. 2010 is when Kalanidhi Maran had acquired a controlling stake as far as SpiceJet as airline is concerned. In 2015, handed the control back to Ajay Singh, and since then, there's been a dispute over a transfer of preference shares, a transfer of warrants, a transfer of cash. There's been an arbitral dispute. Now, the arbitral dispute first went in favor of Kalanidhi Maran. The arbitral tribunal had directed for payment of 579 crore rupees from SpiceJet to Kalanidhi Maran. However, after a spate of litigation in 2024, which is just last year, the Supreme Court had sent the matter back into arbitration. And at the arbitration center is when Kalanidhi Maran had raised claims of 1,300 crore rupees. The arbitral tribunal rejected it. Kalanidhi Maran then moved to the Delhi High Court. The Delhi High Court, we now understand, has also rejected it. In fact, the Delhi High Court used strong language that this was, quote-unquote, a calculated gamble being used by Kalanidhi Maran in terms of way they've gone about filing this entire petition, challenging the arbitral award, and also going on to say that certain key facts were in fact held from the Delhi High Court. The Delhi High Court saying we're not impressed with this conduct. So on that ground, sending it aside, dismissing this petition. But bear in mind that Kalanidhi Maran does have the legal remedy, the legal option of appealing this Delhi High Court judgment before the Supreme Court.
All right, many thanks for joining us. Now, the Supreme Court has questioned the Maharashtra government's decision to disqualify L&T from the tender process of two projects. The road projects are worth 14,000 crore rupees. The apex court says it's difficult to believe that the company that built the Central Vista in New Delhi does not qualify. It also sought the state government's response by Thursday. Now, the Bombay High Court has passed an interim order that restricts the Mumbai International Airport from taking a final decision to replace Turkish firm Chelby Aviation. The court said that no final decision shall be taken on the tenders till the ground handling services firm's pleas are heard in June. The Mumbai Airport's decision to replace Chelby came after a backlash over Turkey's support to Pakistan during Operation Sindoor. Now, online investment platform Groww has filed confidential papers with the market regulator SEBI for an IPO. Sources have told CNBC TV18 that the IPO size is likely to be between $700 million to $1 billion and will comprise a mix of fresh issue and an offer for sale. The proceeds of the IPO will be invested in tech development and business expansion. In fact, speaking to CNBC TV18, Groww CEO Lalit Keshri explained why the company shifted its domicile from the US to India and the need for capital infusion. Of course, you're one of the companies that reverse flipped and moved your domicile to India, ostensibly, of course, with the hope and the possibility of IPOing. But what was that like? Because, you know, it's few companies have gone down that road at this point in time, and it also comes with a pretty hefty bill. But what was the experience of reverse flipping?
Well, it was like grueling experience. We in 2018. So I told, right, we started in 2016, we raised some angel, but we needed more capital. But we were thinking of moving to direct mutual funds, which is like zero revenue for next, I don't know how many years. We needed capital. And YC was one good kind of option for us.
Yeah.
So we applied to YC, got in. And based on...
And for those of you who are watching, YC is Y Combinator. Yes.
Y Combinator, right? And but we got feedback from a lot of seniors and from YC, and that, you know, better to incorporate in US because funding is easy, right? You know, raising money in the US. So us time pe, like, you don't think about 5 years down the line, 10 years. No, I mean, you think about from your purpose perspective, but first you need to, so I say, right, in long term, everybody is dead, but, you know, to think long term, you need to keep doing short term.
Yeah.
So we incorporated in the US at that time, and then we paid for that, and we could afford also because a company has been profitable for so many years, and this was also right time. Where typically, if you're raising capital, then it becomes tough because the process itself is very long. You go through NCLT process and those kind of things.
Yeah. Well, that's another company heading to the Lal Street. That's Lalit Keshri of Groww. Now, Indigo promoter Rakesh Gangwal will sell more than 3% stake in the airline through block deals tomorrow. Sources tell CNBC TV18 that Gangwal is hoping to raise more than 6,800 crores. The floor price is at a discount of 4.5% of the stock's closing price today. Rakesh Gangwal and his family held 13.53% stake as of the 31st of March 2025, and Gangwal has made it clear he intends to bring down his stake, and he's been doing that periodically. Now, the 3,500 crore rupee IPO of Schloss Bangalore, that's the owner of luxury hotel chain The Leela, has seen a tepid response on day one. The company's overall issue was subscribed 6%. The portion allocated for retail investors was booked 20%. The portion for qualified institutional buyers was subscribed 3%. Storage solutions provider Aegis Vopak's IPO also opened for subscription. 26% of the public issue had been subscribed so far, with the retail portion booked 19%. Meanwhile, qualified institutional buyers have subscribed to 39% of the portion allocated to them. The new invoice management system under GST has irked India Inc. Sources tell CNBC TV18 that industry has flagged its concerns about additional compliance to the government. Timsy is standing by now with more details. Timsy, what exactly seems to be the problem here?
Well, that's right. Sources have told CNBC TV18 that the new invoice management system, or the IMS, under the GST regime is causing additional compliance burden for the taxpayers. Industry, in a detailed representation, has mentioned that the new system design assumes auto-replication, reconciliation of transactions across GSTR forms, and considering that most companies' processes are through manual operations, the new system would not just mean additional infrastructure, a minimum requirement of a qualified CA, a 24-hour software and internet connection, and basic backbone, that is the IT backbone, which will be required, adding to the burden. Also, the representations outline that most companies use basic accounting software that don't allow auto-matching of sales, purchases, ITC transactions across GSTR forms. And as per the new invoice management system and the design, if it sees any mismatch or break in the transactions in the GSTR forms, it will raise a red flag, which will alert the GST and income tax authorities for action, and it could lead to companies and taxpayers getting not just a GST but income tax notice as well. That is for the transaction reconciliation mismatch due to the new invoice management system and design. Further discrepancies have been flagged by the industry due to the new IMS design system, which says that it compresses correction window, blocks ITC credit, and thus problems arising due to the new IMS design are adding to compliance burden, hitting working capital, along with the most harming impact, which is that the assumptions that will be made by the authorities during these mismatches, which will be noted, and it increases the risk of dual taxation. Now to be seen is how the government and the industry battle this out.
All right, Timsy, many thanks for joining us. JSW Paints is likely to take over AkzoNobel's India business. Sources tell CNBC TV18 that JSW Paints will buy out AkzoNobel's promoter stake of 75% for 10,000 crore rupees. Rachna standing by with more on the likely contours of the deal. Rachna.
The battle for AkzoNobel India is heating up, and JSW Paints may hold the edge. Sources tell CNBC TV18 that JSW Paints is set to acquire a 74.76% stake in AkzoNobel India in a deal valued at nearly 10,000 crore rupees. The deal is expected to be completed by the end of June. But this would mark the complete exit of AkzoNobel's Dutch parent from the Indian market. But that's not all. The deal is also being struck at a discount. AkzoNobel India's current market capitalization is at about 16,000 crore rupees, but the deal values the company at about 13,000 crore rupees. Now, Indigo Paints and Berger Paints had also thrown their hats into the ring to buy AkzoNobel's India assets, but JSW Paints has emerged as a frontrunner. CNBC TV18 had first reported in January that these three companies will battle it out for AkzoNobel's India assets. Earlier this year, Parth Jindal spoke to CNBC TV18's Shireen Bhan, where he promised to give everything to seal this deal. Take a look.
I think there's no choice. If JSW and the ambitions we've shown that we want to be a top 3 player in whichever sector we play in, if I have to do that, then I have to give it everything that I've got for Akzo.
How will you fund it?
It's going to be a mix of the family investing, and private equity.
Well, that was Parth Jindal speaking to me about their bid for AkzoNobel, and it looks like they are going all out to pick up that asset. Up next on India Business Hour, Kerala government issues a warning to coastal areas. This after containers from a capsized ship carrying oil and hazardous chemicals wash ashore. A ground report coming up. And you can catch all of CNBC TV 18's news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X and Jio Hotstar. India's economy is on track to overtake Japan's economy as the fourth largest in the world this year, but India is not the fourth largest economy just yet. Data from the IMF shows India's economy will cross the $4 trillion mark in 2025, just edging ahead of Japan's economy. Niti Aayog member Arvind Virmani says India's economic power is far greater than Japan, and India is on course to become the third largest economy in the next 4 years.
India's economic power is now ahead of Japan. And on that basis, I forecasted that the dollar value, which we all discussed, would exceed that of Japan most likely in 2025. My projected index is indicating that the index economic power would be larger than Germany by 26, and therefore, in terms of US dollar value, I expect India's economy to be larger than Japan by 27 or 28. Again, the IMF says 28. So I think by 2029, India will be the third largest economy measured in current US dollars.
Niti Aayog member Arvind Virmani then. Containers from a capsized ship carrying oil and hazardous chemicals have washed ashore in Kerala. The Kerala government has issued evacuation orders for parts of the district's coastal areas. The government has told the public to stay away from the beached containers. The cargo ship, which was on its way to Kochi, sank after encountering heavy weather. Neetu Regukumar brings us a ground report from Kollam in Kerala. Most of the containers are washing ashore there.
There's a high alert in the coastal areas of Kerala after a vessel capsized and hazardous materials, containers containing them, have fallen into the sea. About 27 containers have so far been washed ashore, 27 in Kollam district alone and 2 from Alappuzha district of Kerala. The authorities, the Coast Guard, the Navy, the State Disaster Management and the State Administration is trying to find solutions to this. There has been monitoring by the Coast Guard and the TV. They're looking into whether there has been oil spills, what these hazardous materials are a cause of concern for the people of Kerala, especially those in the coastal area. Now, in most of these places where these containers have been washed to the shore, it's the coastal community, the fishermen community who go out regularly into the sea to catch the fish. So they are concerned whether their products will not have any value, whether there will be, whether people will be concerned about these hazardous chemicals. Many say that especially in the coastal area, the housing are very close by. They are very close to the coast where these containers have been washed and brought to the shore. So they are concerned that what will be the hazardous chemicals, or what are the side effects of this? Will it spread in the air? Will they have any problems? These are all concerns that the people are facing. Their livelihood. Many are saying that for a couple of days they're actually thinking of moving somewhere out to see what will happen.
Neetu Regukumar then. A heavy rainfall and thunderstorm battering Mumbai and neighbouring districts today, marking the region's earliest onset of monsoons in 70 years. The Met Department issued a red alert for Mumbai, Thane, Raigad and Ratnagiri, which will remain in place at least until tomorrow morning. Local train and metro services were disrupted. A newly inaugurated metro station in Mumbai's Worli was flooded, disrupting services on the recently opened Aqua line. Roads are flooded across South Mumbai and other parts of the city. Many of them recently built have caved in, disrupting traffic and leading to major traffic jams. Now, the competition in quick commerce has taken a new turn. Zepto CEO Adit Palicha alleges a smear campaign by an unnamed CFO of a rival firm. Shilpa's here with more. Shilpa, elbows out in the quick commerce war. What is Adit Palicha alleging?
Well, the battle in the quick commerce space is escalating beyond just numbers now. Now, Zepto's co-founder and CEO Adit Palicha has alleged a smear campaign is being run against the company by the CFO of a rival firm. Now, in a LinkedIn post late last night, Palicha claimed that this rival CFO is calling up investors to make what he calls a wild allegations, is sharing false financials and is even paying social media bots to spread negativity about Zepto. While Palicha says he's all for aggressive competition but not lies. And he wrote that he hopes that this executive in question puts an end to this. Now, in the post, Palicha also laid out Zepto's latest financial performance numbers, which he called was his response upfront in case stories go out with inaccurate information. He claims that Zepto's monthly gross order value surged to 2,400 crore rupees in May 2025, up from just 750 crore in the same month last year. EBITDA improved 20% and cash burn was down 65% between January to May this year. He further claimed that the company expects most of its dark stores to be EBITDA positive by the next quarter, with overall profitability also not being far behind. He added that the company is doubling down on dark store launches with no large-scale rationalization in sight. Now, Palicha's remarks come at a time where competition in quick commerce space in India is heating up. Not only are new entrants like Flipkart and Amazon ramping up their presence, Zepto's direct competitors, Blinkit and Instamart, both of them alluded to widening losses, and this they alluded to heightened competition in the fourth quarter. Now, Eternal's Blinkit saw its adjusted EBITDA loss grow nearly 4 times in Q4, but the company has said that it will focus on market share even if it comes at the cost of short-term profitability. Real estate, marketing and last-mile delivery costs have also surged and margins have come under pressure as per the company's commentary. Now, Swiggy's Instamart also took a hit, with Q4 adjusted EBITDA loss nearly doubling to 840 crore rupees in the fourth quarter. Swiggy has now pushed its contribution margin break-even target to 3 to 5 quarters from now, citing sustained competition, which it expects will remain intensive in the near term, and it is so ramping up investments. Now, as deep-pocketed players fight for dominance, the battle for quick commerce is no longer just about who delivers groceries faster, but who can weather the burn and the bruising.
Shilpa, many thanks for joining us. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks so much for watching. Do stay tuned. The news continues right here on CNBC TV 18.